Physical versus digital note-taking. It's a debate that's raged across the internet for years. If you've got something important that you need to remember, well, is it better to write it down physically or to whip out a phone or a laptop and to make a note of it digitally? Similar with tasks, is it better to keep track of your tasks in a notebook, or is it better to do that in something like a laptop, an application that helps manage those things for you? In this video, I will talk about the pros of each method, and I also talk a little bit about what I like to do in my day-to-day life, and possibly you can get some ideas from that to see what you want to do going forward. Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Now before we get started, let me know down in the comments, do you currently prefer digital or physical note-taking? Do you like having a physical notebook, or do you prefer making notes on something like a phone or a laptop? So first I'm going to talk about digital note-taking, and I'm going to talk about the pros of digital note-taking. And essentially the main pro, and the one that everybody always goes to first, is really to do with convenience. Everybody has their phone on them, they've got it on them all the time, and nowadays you'll be really hard pressed to find somebody who didn't have some kind of smartphone on them. And so really, if you want to take a note, it's so convenient just to take your phone out of your pocket, quickly type the note down, put it away, and go about whatever it is you're doing through the day. You don't have to hunt around to find a notebook, you don't have to find a pen. I mean, it's not often that people have pens on them anymore these days. That convenience really is a big factor for people. If you pair this with the cloud backup that a lot of people are using nowadays, iNotes is a cloud backup, you can use your Google Drive, and really being able to access them from anywhere pairs in with that convenience. You don't need to use the same device every time. You can make a quick note on your phone, and then later on in your day when you come back home, it's there on your laptop. Those factors, when brought together, they really do make digital note-taking really convenient when you compare it to physical note-taking. Now, on top of this, inherently being on digital devices gives you pretty much immediate access to the internet. Now, this could be a con, and we'll talk about this later, but the pro of this is that if you ever need to look something up, it's very easy to do. Being on your phone or a laptop, you can just go across to your web browser, do a quick search, find the piece of information that you need, and get back to your notes right away. And then when you have made a big old load of notes and you want to find something later from your notes, digital note-taking apps usually have some kind of search function, usually have a way to retrieve what it is that you're looking for later on. And physical note-taking just doesn't have that. You can build an index system, sure, but if you're looking for one piece of information and you're not exactly sure where you stored it, then there's no control F, there's no way to very quickly find that thing that you need. You'll have to flick through all the pages. And then finally, the last pro that I could think of really of digital note-taking is the speed at which you can make notes. So if you imagine you're a student, you've gone to a lecture, and you're trying to take notes alongside a lecturer, well, which one do you think is easier? Typing really quickly, a lot of people can type really fast now, and so you can keep up with the lecturer, or writing things down. It might be difficult to write down and keep up with the lecturer all at the same time. And if you do, you might get a bit of hand cramp. So really, if the speed of taking notes is kind of key to you, then digital notes could be the way to go. And since you're taking notes quickly, it might be that you end up making a mistake or two. But given that you're taking notes digitally, it's very easy to just go back, delete, retype that note. That's really convenient and easy compared to when you write something down on paper, you cross it out. It can be a bit messy. If you're a bit of a perfectionist, then that can also tie into your decision. It's very easy to go back and amend the notes that you've made. Okay, so that was a very quick summary of the pros of digital note-taking. We'll now go into physical note-taking and what I think are the main benefits of doing it this way. The first one, and the one that everyone talks about really, is better memory retention, but I don't often see people talk about why it is that we have better memory retention. Now, if you remember when we discussed digital note-taking, I mentioned that it was possible to make notes much quicker. And while this is a good thing in some circumstances, it actually works against you in other ones. So when you're taking notes on pen and paper, you have to condense it down. You can't write it down word for word, because it's just not reasonable if you're taking notes by hand. So what you tend to do is you tend to summarize the key points of what it is that you're taking notes on. And what this does is it really keeps you engaged. It forces you to think about it more. It keeps your focus levels up, but also by summarizing it helps you to get an understanding of the topic. If you're just typing word for word versus actually thinking about it and condensing it down into the key points, then you're much more likely to A, understand the topic, and B, you're much more likely to remember it later. Just the act of thinking it through properly it kind of helps you to remember straight away. And as we summarize our notes more and more, as we sort of get into the habit of doing this, then we get better at just taking notes in general. And this is a bit of a skill, I think. Condensing things down into the very key points, it is a skill, and it is something that I feel can help in your work life and possibly in your personal life too, but definitely in your work life, being able to take good condensed notes. So getting into the habit and getting practice in with that, I think it can be really useful. Something else that I like about taking notes physically is that you're not as distracted. When you're on your phone or you're on your laptop, it's very easy to think, oh, I'll just watch this video for a little while, or I'll just browse social media for a little while, and before you know it, 10 minutes have gone by, 20 minutes have gone by, you got distracted from your task. And that's just not really a thing with physical note-taking. Now, I know that it is possible to set up your phone in a way that you don't get distracted. You can block apps and things like that, but that can be a little bit of a faff. And so just purely on whether or not it's tempting for distractions to happen or not, physical note-taking does have the edge there. Now, physical notes can't be changed easily, and I know I kind of use this as a benefit of digital notes, that they can be changed really easily, but I think it can, as well as it can be a pro of physical note-taking as well. And what I mean is, imagine you're taking notes on, say, an iPad or something like that, and you're using a stylus and you're drawing something, or you're creating a diagram, or you're just writing notes out. And if you're not quite happy with how it looks, then you can go back and you can change it. And this is a good thing up to a point, I think. The reason I say it's good up to a point is that it's possible for you to sort of get caught up in making the notes look perfect, make that diagram look immaculate, make that paragraph look really, really neat and nice, color coordinate everything. And you can get to a point where you actually spend more time just making the notes look aesthetically pleasing than you do, engaging with the subject and just getting through the task that it is you're trying to get through. So with physical notes, you can't change it so much. You put pen to paper, it's permanent. And so I think that this can lead to more of a focus on the key task rather than being worried about how it looks. Just a quick one, but possibly a really big benefit depending on your outlook in life, is that it's getting us away from screens. This could either be a non-factor or a really big factor for you, depending on what you think your relationship with screens are like. And finally, I think physical note-taking is much more personal than digital note-taking, especially when you're comparing writing things down to typing notes out. Typing notes out, everybody's notes look the same, Everybody opens up some form of word processor. They don't look that different. Google Drive, iNotes, Microsoft Word, they all look relatively the same, especially when you're typing notes out. Most people use similar fonts. It's not going to be that different. On the other hand, when it comes to physical note-taking, you've picked your notebook that you want to use. You've picked your pen. You've got your own writing style. You might add little diagrams, little doodles here and there, things like that. Your notebook is kind of a very unique item, and that personal factor, it can be motivating in helping us to actually use a notebook, and so it can help us to stick with putting something new in place. So for me then, what do I like most? Well, I have tried both for a little while. I've gone back and forth over the years, and really I think I prefer physical note-taking. I like notebooks. I'm kind of a bit of a stationery nerd anyway, and I always look at new notebooks and new pens and things like that, and I always think, oh, I would really love to have an excuse to buy those. But also on top of this, I kind of feel like I'm more productive with a notebook than I am on a laptop or on my phone. When I'm using a notebook, I tend to only be using it for certain things. And that's, the tasks I have to get done for the day, or writing something down that I need to remember. And since that's the only thing that I use it for, I feel like my brain associates that more with being productive versus I don't only use a phone or a laptop for productive things. I'll use it for web browsing, social media, gaming, things like that. So I feel like physical notebooks do help me get more things done in both my work life and my personal life. I also really like the idea of having a ton of notebooks that have been filled out. I don't know if you're the same, but I sometimes see people on YouTube or other social media, and they have a big shelf full of notebooks that they've filled out over the years. There'll be different styles, they'll have different things in them, and I really like that almost documentation of their life. You can see how their tastes and how their personalities have changed a little bit throughout the years. It's just an insight into their life. I've always liked this idea for myself, just having a kind of record of what I've done over the years. So, that's a big factor for me too. I won't deny though that I do think digital note-taking is more convenient, and so I am putting something in place to try and match the benefits of the convenience of digital note-taking, but with still using a notebook. And so recently I have bought these. Now these are field notes. These are the National Parks editions. I really like how they look. I'm working through the Grand Canyon one at the moment. On top of just generally liking the design of them, they're also, because they're so small, I feel like I can just have one in my pocket all the time. And so by having one with me all the time and a pen, I'm trying to replicate that convenience of digital note-taking where, you know, previously you could pull out your phone and just type something down no matter where you were, what you were doing. I'm hoping to be able to do the same thing with, you know, one of these field notebooks. I have been using a bigger notebook previously, but I've kind of found that I don't really use it outside of work because it tends to stay on my desk. And so I'm not really writing down everything that I think I need to remember. I'm only really using it for those work tasks. That's because it's too big for me to just have on me all the time, even though it's only A5. And so I'm hoping that with this much smaller notebook, I will use it more for day-to-day things. I'll still use it for work tasks, but I'm hoping that I'll start to note down other things as well, you know, things in personal life or just things that I generally want to remember. I'll see how it goes for a few months, and maybe I'll do an update on the channel if people are interested. If you are a regular Field Notes user, then, you know, let me know. If you've got any tips and tricks on the best ways to get the most out of them, then I would happily read your comments. So yeah, for now, I'm sticking with physical notebooks, but I am changing it up a little bit just to see what the benefits are. And there we have it. I hope you found this useful. You might have picked up a few ideas that you didn't have before you watched the video. If you're interested in looking at a pocket notebook of your own, then I would put a link down in the comments. And if you're interested in notebooks in general, then you can click here to check out a notebook that I've been using for the last few months, and I think it's really good. Thanks very much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video.